These days, an 8-year-old can be given a math question for homework and go straight to AI for a solution. Just a few years ago, they really only had a few choices. They could try to figure it out themselves, ask a parent, ask their teacher the next day, maybe search online and try to find an explanation. Today, they can take a picture of that question, upload it to AI, and have the answer in seconds. And it's not just math. AI can write their paragraph, summarize the book they were supposed to read, fix their spelling, explain their science homework. It can even change its answer until it sounds like something an 8-year-old might actually write. And this is where one of the most important questions comes from. What happens when a child is given a tool that does most of the thinking for them when they're still learning how to think? I've been looking through the research on this so that you don't have to, and the answer is a lot more complicated than simply saying AI is good or bad for kids. Because used one way, AI may actually help children learn. Used another way, it might actually only help them avoid learning altogether. And when I say children are using AI, we're not talking about something that might happen years from now. Just this year in 2026, Common Sense Media surveyed more than 1,200 kids between the ages of 9 and 17. And what they found? They found that 86% were already using AI. Nearly 1 in 4 said they use it every day. Now, that study does include teenagers, so I don't want to pretend those numbers apply directly to an 8-year-old, but 9 years old, 10 years old, 11, 12-year-olds were part of that survey too. And more than 8 out of 10 kids who were using AI said they were using it for things that included homework help. And this is why I'm interested in elementary school specifically, because if you're 16 or you're in high school, there's a conversation around cheating. But if you're then in, grade 4, grade 5, something like that, well, you're still learning how to write, learning how to read in some cases, learning the basics. So before we decide whether AI helps or hurts these kids, we have to understand what they might be skipping when AI gives them the answer. Because when a child gets the answer wrong, that doesn't necessarily mean something has gone wrong. Think about a child learning multiplication. They see 6 times 7, they try to remember it, maybe they get it wrong, they try again. Eventually, they don't need someone to tell them the answer anymore. They know it. The same thing happens with reading. Children have to practice connecting letters with sounds, recognizing words, building vocabulary, and eventually understanding more complicated text. Learning requires children to actually engage with the information, practice it, retrieve it, and build the knowledge so that they can use it later. And I see this with students all the time. Sometimes when we see an answer is wrong, it actually gives us more information than when we see an answer is right. Because then we can figure out, well, is the student struggling in a certain area? Are they confused? What frustrates them? And we can help in many different ways. So if AI immediately removes that entire process and simply gives a child the finished answer, the concern isn't that the technology made the work easier. The concern is whether the child actually learned anything they can do without it. And this concern is starting to show up in the research. In 2026, the OECD looked at the growing body of research on generative AI in education, and one of their conclusions was actually pretty important. Students can produce better work when they have access to AI without necessarily learning more. In some studies, students using general purpose AI produced higher quality answers while they had access to it. But when the AI was taken away and they had to demonstrate what they knew on their own, that advantage completely disappeared and sometimes even reversed. And researchers have a term for part of what's happening here. This is called cognitive offloading. Basically, we hand some of the thinking over to the technology. Now, most of this research isn't actually being done on 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, and I think that's a pretty big, important piece just to mention, because the research is moving at a certain pace, but AI is moving much faster than this research, and the reality is that we don't actually know how this is affecting elementary school kids until they grow up. And that actually leaves parents and schools having to make decisions about AI while we're still trying to figure out what its long-term effects might actually be. Okay, all that's well and good, but here's where it gets more complicated. because there's also evidence that AI can actually help elementary-aged children learn. In a 2025 study, researchers tested a specially designed ChatGPT learning system with 104 fifth grade students at a primary school in China. Half of those students used the AI-supported system to work through math word problems, while the other half continued with conventional instruction. The students using the AI system showed significantly greater improvement in their problem-solving performance. And that's important because the AI wasn't simply being used to give children the answers. The system was designed to help them work through the problem-solving process. And I think this is where the conversation around AI might be getting a little confusing or maybe even wrong in a sense. Because is AI good or bad for the kids? That's maybe one portion of the conversation. But it's the same thing, for example, with calculators. Let's say that you have a calculator and a child is using it. It can help them, or it can just simply give them the answer that they probably should have learned at some point. So AI, is it really that much different? The difference may come down to whether we're using AI to replace the learning or using AI to actually support it. So what does that difference actually look like? I mean, imagine a 10-year-old is stuck on a word problem or a math problem. They could type the question into an AI tool and say, give me an answer. And they'll probably get one, but they could also say, don't give me the answer. Help me figure this out one step at a time. Now, the AI can ask what they already know, it can give them a hint, it can explain something they don't understand, ask them to try again, or even create another similar question for practice. Same child, same technology, completely different experience. And I do have to say that this kind of is somewhere where I see value. Now, if AI is just giving an answer and helping the child just see the final answer without any real help, then I think that's maybe where it's going wrong. But if instead the AI is saying, well, here's an example of where it kind of went wrong, then maybe we're sort of stepping into a zone that's more like a teacher instead of an answering machine. And from what I see here, that may be one of the biggest opportunities AI brings to elementary education. Not replacing the thinking, but helping the children through it. But even if AI becomes an incredible teaching tool, there's still something it can't completely replace, and that's the teacher, especially when we're talking about younger children. I mean, a teacher isn't only looking at whether a child got the answer right. They can notice when a child is frustrated, when they're guessing, when they've stopped paying attention completely, when they understand something but don't have the confidence to say it. And organizations like UNICEF have argued that digital tools should complement teachers rather than replace them. The reality is that these kids are going to be growing up in this age of AI anyway, so maybe a better question could be, well, how much autonomy do we give them? How much independence? Or how early do we actually allow access for this? So how young is too young for a child to use AI? I mean, that's actually harder to answer than you might think. I don't have a full answer for that, but UNESCO has called for age limits on independent conversations with generative AI, along with stronger privacy protections and age-appropriate approaches to using these tools in education. And that word, independent, is actually what matters. I mean, there's a big difference between a 9-year-old sitting alone with an AI chatbot and a 9-year-old using AI as a part of a lesson with a teacher there to guide them. Because AI can be wrong. It can confidently give children information that isn't true. And younger children may not always have the knowledge or judgment to recognize when that happens. And to be honest, maybe this is an appropriate place to draw the line. I mean, these kids, they likely shouldn't have unrestricted access to AI, though we probably shouldn't pretend that it doesn't exist either. It is the world that they grow up in. Maybe the goal shouldn't be getting young children to use as much AI as possible. Maybe it's teaching them when to use it, when not to use it, and even more importantly, when not to trust it. But schoolwork might not even be the most controversial part of this. I mean, kids aren't only asking AI math questions, they're just talking to it. In research released by UNICEF in 2026, 1 in 10 children surveyed said they were turning to AI for advice about things that worried them. And AI chatbots are becoming increasingly human-like, and they can remember these previous conversations. They can respond sympathetically, they can agree with you, and some are specifically designed to feel more like a companion than a search engine. And so UNICEF is now warning that conversational AI creates a different set of risks for children, especially when children begin treating these systems like friends, confidants, or sources of emotional support. And this to me is kind of where the conversation gets a bit bigger than just cheating on homework. I mean, we're raising these kids in this environment where now they can talk to a computer and it can agree with them. It can help them through and reason with them. And so we don't know what this actually looks like without the kids actually growing up. And that's what makes this entire experiment with children and AI so unusual. Millions of kids are already using the technology, and we're still trying to figure out what it's doing to them. And maybe that's the part of this that we should be paying the most attention to. This isn't like introducing a new textbook or new curriculum or even a new piece of technology into the classroom. AI is changing while children are still and already using it. The tools will get better, they'll become more personalized, they'll remember more about us, and they'll probably become a normal part of how children learn, communicate, and eventually work. The OECD says AI can support real learning. I mean, it also warns that when students hand too much of this thinking over to it, better performance doesn't necessarily mean they're actually learning. And so that's why I can't really say whether I'm for AI for kids or against AI. I mean, it's really hard to tell at this point, and until we see later on what this looks like, because clearly there are benefits to it, though until these elementary school kids are grown up, there's no way we're going to actually know what's going on and how it affected them. And so maybe the biggest question isn't whether kids should use AI, it's how much of childhood we're comfortable letting AI become a part of. And to be honest, I don't think we actually know the answer yet. Curious on your thoughts, but I'll see you in the next video.